The roots of pragmatics reach back to antique, especially to rhetoric as one of three liberal arts. However, until the end of the 18th century, proto-pragmatic insists tended to be consigned to the pragmatic, that is, rhetoric, weights, paper basket, and thus excluded from serious philosophical considerations.
As my classmate mentioned before, it can be said that pragmatic was conceived between 1718 and 1830 in Britain, but also in Germany and in France, post-Lockean and post-Kantian philosophies of language. This early conception of pragmatic are described in the first part of the book, Language, Action, and Conception. I'm gonna mention some example of we can see pragmatic and semantic a little bit. The first example is will you crack open the door? I am getting hot. Semantically, the word crack would mean to break. But pragmatically, we know that the speakers means to open the door just a little to let in some air. The second example is I hear you. That semantically, we know that heart is an organ of our body who booms blue and keep us alive. But pragmatically, I heart you means to I love you because the heart is a symbol of love. And the last example of that I have is if you eat all that food, it will make you bigger. So semantically, bigger in this sentence could means longer than you are currently, but in this case, semantically is a word or a phrase or a sentence that we use to do that a kid eat all the food because they need to grow up. So there are a lot of examples of pragmatic that we can mention, but I mentioned some of them. And thank you.
Pragmatics is the study of how context affects meaning, such as how sentences are interpreted in certain situations or the interpretation of linguistics meaning in context.
In the following sentences, the kids have eaten already, and surprisingly, they are hungry. The linguistic context helps to interpret the second sentence depending on what the first sentence says.
The situational context helps to interpret the second sentence because it is common knowledge that humans are not usually hungry after eating.
Okay, hello everybody. Continue with the topic of pragmatic. So my classmates, they already explained the definition of pragmatic. So we know that the pragmatic it's like will depend of the context or the situation. So uh, one example that we consider is that pragmatic is the logical line of the sentence, right? So sometimes we made some question that sound like some weird, but the answer is obviously one example. When we cut your hair, the people say, oh, did you cut your hair? Sometimes it's like obvious question and obvious answers. Like so, also the logical things in the pragmatic. So obviously, um, is to describe a solution that takes like realism, right? We know some example like children uh, maybe wants like unicorn to his birthday. That is no logical. So the pragmatic look for the situation that are so logical, right? So um, so we have some examples of pragmatic, right? um, it's like obvious line always, right? So to continue to this topic, I propose some example of sentence with pragmatic, right? Well, like talking about the context, I have uh, some example like the physical context to objects surrounding the communication place and the time communication. What is going to or doing around, what is happening around of the context. Also, that is like we are more focused according to this course of linguistic, like linguistic context. What has been said before in the conversation, right? So what the people make question or make sentence with the logical definition or logical meaning, right? So uh, also there are another context, there is the social context. Okay, uh, was the social relation of the people of the communication, what kind of word the people use more with the specific meaning, right? So also um, it's it's easy to find this kind of sentence like pragmatic sentence. Uh, one of these example is please open your door. Outside is raining, so it's obviously the people need to open the door to when the weather conditions are different. In this case, it's raining, right? So um, it's very important that we study how they can identify the pragmatic situation, right? Or the pragmatic sentence. Also, always or most of the time, is related with the context, with different contexts that I mentioned before, right? So we have been studying this topic in the linguistic course. So we have a little uh, knowledge about what is pragmatic and all these subtopics, right? Uh, Thank you for watching, and we'll continue with my next classmate. Thank you.
I'm just what I've learned about pragmatics. I'm totally agree with the comment of Mauricio and Edwin. For me, in teaching language, along with his culture teacher, should take a pragmatic aspect into considerations. Since understanding pragmatics would help foreign language learners to avoid false interpretations, which will cause misunderstanding in communication between speakers with a different culture and social backgrounds.
Pragmatics involves all the social cues that accompany language. There are socially constructed rules that guide how individuals interact with each other. The rules guide turn taking greetings, eye contact, body language, and the way individuals are referenced in conversations. These rules can be described as the pragmatics of oral language, and they are often implicitly learned.
Well, what I learned about pragmatics. About pragmatics, I learned that it is a branch of linguistics that is interested or studies the way in which context influences in the interpretation of the meaning. For example, in the sentence, "Will you